sorry, I read the wrong part. I quit my boring office job and turned down a job offer from MI5 in London to go live in Australia after visiting for a few days and loving it there. There was an issue with my visa, which meant it expired 2 hours before I landed and was invalid. I had to fly to another country to get a new one, so I flew to New Zealand but the backpacking hotel I was going to stay in was overbooked. They offered to put me in an Asian hostel down the block, and I agreed because I just wanted to get my visa and get back to Australia. I applied for my visa online as soon as I got to the Asian hostel. While I was there, I met a hot Japanese girl and instantly fell in love. We tried to communicate, but she couldn't speak English and I didn't know any Japanese. So the next day, I bought a Japanese Facebook to chat with her. We went hiking to the bars and the beach, the movie theater, and 3 weeks later, I got my visa and she came back to Australia with me. I got a job selling I don't know what that word is. Dios on the Gold Coast after a stint in Brisbane, and she went back to New Zealand after 3 months because she only had a tourist visa. At the end of the year, my boss offered to sponsor me for a new work visa, but the Japanese girl was asking me to meet her in Tokyo. So I quit the job and flew to Japan. I spent 6 months with a girl in Japan as a tourist and met her mate's father, who was a karate master. He offered to teach me karate, so I got a new visa for that and stayed. Later on, I married the girl, had kids, got a job at a private high school, and bought a home in Tokyo. All because I was 2 hours late getting from the UK to Australia. I don't know why these stories always make me want to tear up. I met this guy 2 months ago when I went to Amsterdam for a holiday. Why am I trying to have an accent right now? At the time, I was together with my now ex-boyfriend, whom I had been together for nearly a year, and I was desperately needing time off with him for some reasons, which I'm not going to get into. I've been good friends with this Canadian guy whom I've known over 7 years. We were kind of close friends when I was in Canada as an exchange student, and we still are. So he told me over text he was going to Amsterdam with his friend for a holiday and jokingly asked if I wanted to join them. And I thought to myself, this is perfect. I can get away from my boyfriend and hopefully I will have a decent time to think over a relationship alone while I'm away. So I met up with my friend and his friend, who totally blew me away. Not only was he good looking, he was very intelligent, friendly, and polite. I found him super attractive. By all means, the more I got to know him, the more difficult it got. I knew I was falling for him, but I had a boyfriend at the moment, so of course I kept my distance from him, though I actually really wanted to get closer to him. The first day we met, nothing happened, and it passed by pretty quickly. By the second day, which was the only day left together, he started to approach me in a really cute way, such as trying to push me into a dirty canal and scaring me from behind all of a sudden, etc. Then when the 3 of us were at a pub around 2 a.m., he placed one of his hands on my thigh under the table, and I was done. I couldn't help but to lean in and kiss him. We ended up sleeping together in my bed that night. How painful it was to leave him behind the very next day because we had different destinations after Amsterdam. Me for London and them for Germany. When I was in London, I got the sweetest message from him on Facebook, and it actually took me by surprise. Although I didn't regret what I did, I was very sad since I thought we would never meet again. I never even thought he would write me, but I was totally wrong. After I got back from my trip, I split up with my now ex, and ever since, we send texts to each other every day and talk via Skype every weekend. And in a month, I will be meeting this sweetest person I've met in Amsterdam for the New Year's. I know he was actually feeling the same way towards me, and he didn't want what happened in Amsterdam to be a one-night event. I just cannot wait to see him again and give him the biggest hug. That's a story that I want to update on. Are they still together? Did they age? Are they married? Like, this is the thing with like reading Reddit stories. I get kind of invested in the story and I'm like, oh my gosh, but what's the update? Like, can you tell us? Okay, moving on to the next story. He's saying we met at a friend's wedding 7 years ago. We were both in the wedding party and lined up to walk down the aisle together. Introduced myself during rehearsal, couldn't stop thinking of her that night. Made a move and asked her out on a hike a few days later. Our wedding day is at the end of the month. Sadly, we dated longer than my friend's marriage lasted. Sitting on a train traveling back to London, I was behind a large group of people who were on their way home for a friend's wedding. One of them asked how the friend met their spouse, and apparently their friend had been on a flight from London to Australia to go traveling for a few months. She didn't have a full itinerary planned, but roughly knew what she was doing. She was traveling alone, but her seatmate struck up a conversation. They had a great time and found out that they'd even studied at the same subject at university. They parted ways when they landed in Hong Kong. When they boarded the next flight in Hong Kong, however, they found that they were again seated next to each other. What are the odds? Upon landing in Australia, the guy was supposed to go to New Zealand, but they both decided to ditch their plans and travel together. They've been together ever since. In the same second grade class, and he had a massive 8-year-old crush on me. He wrote me a note professing his love for me and slipped it under my school box. Another student noticed, gave the note to the teacher while she proceeded to read out loud and mortified me. 2 years later, in 4th grade, his family moved across the country for his mom's job. Fast forward 8 years later, we were 16. He adds me on Facebook and started messaging me, asking me if I remember him. I had no recollection. He tells me all these stories about us when we were in 2nd grade, and I was totally creeped out. I checked my yearbook and he did exist, but it didn't jog my memory at all. We kept chatting and he mentioned that his extended family still lived in my home state, and he came up to visit frequently, suggesting that next time he was in town we should get together. We did just that. From then on, we were in a relationship. On to the next one. On our 3rd date, we met online. I took the woman who became my wife to an Indian restaurant. I knew she was vegetarian, and out of respect, I started pursuing the vegetarian section of the menu on the back. She said, "Go ahead and order what you want. I don't care if you eat meat in front of me." Now, I've been a vegetarian on and off through my life, and I've been trending towards being vegetarian again, so I replied, "It's okay. If things go well between us, I'd go vegetarian. It would be easier for both of us." It wasn't important to me, but apparently it floored her. She never met a man willing to go vegetarian before in her entire dating experience. We were married 2 years later, and 2 years after that, we're expecting our daughter in November. Bonus story, every night I sing "Dream a Little Dream of Me" to her as we're going to sleep. Even when I'm not around, I call her on the phone and sing to her just as she's heading off to sleep. I haven't missed a night since I started doing it several years ago before we were married. I love stories, so they're tear jerkers. Like weddings, man, I'm a big baby at weddings. Like, I will cry the entire time. My wife and I met at a wedding. We were both from different parts of the state. The wedding was a big party. The couple rented out a beach mansion for 4 days, filled it with booze, and had their best friends come to the party. We locked eyes for the first time we saw each other and became inseparable. We hooked up. Okay, I'm not reading that part. Anyway, leaving the last day, we hugged and said goodbye. Halfway home, I stopped for gas and get miserable. I texted her. Sorry, I'm reading these people messages. Some of them don't really make sense. I texted her, "This drive sucks." She responded immediately, and we never stopped talking since. We are closing in on 3 years married. She and my daughter are best friends, and she is the love of my life. We can't stand to be apart from each other, even for a day. On my first date with my boyfriend, we baked a cake. We left nothing out. Fondant, homemade buttercream, modeling chocolate, graham cracker crumbs, anything fancy we could think of. We worked so hard on that cake. By the end, we didn't even want to eat it because it looks so nice. was going on with us. Oh my gosh, sorry guys. Trying to read it. We matched by chance. Both just checked once a day at that and got connected and spent a whole weekend chatting with each other. Still apologies to the friend who was visiting the entire time. We did not meet that weekend, and on Monday he was flying back home to the UK. But we were still talking, and for some reason we just got the idea that I would come over for the weekend. In the worst case, I could just make a short time holiday in London. In the best case, I would have a great time with a nice nerdy guy. When we saw each other at the airport, well, we just clicked. But since we were living in different countries, we decided to become something casual, nothing serious. The decision lasted for 2 weeks. After that, I was sent to the hospital with a rather serious diagnosis. He was so scared for me that he booked the first flight to be with me. 3 months later, I discovered I was pregnant, and we both said, well, it is quick, but we will find a way to work it out. I can use my paternity leave to move to the UK and find a job. If we split up, in that time my family would still be able to support me. I can always come back. Long story short, I have now been in the UK for 3 years. I am pregnant with baby number 2, and we just bought a house, and every single day I wake up and still have that feeling that it all went totally right. I just lay here in bed listening to him read our son a goodnight story, and my heart melts. I was 31 and had completely given up. I was about to move 100 miles away from the city I lived in to start fresh, try to give myself another shot, hit reset. 2 months later, after I had the decision to move, I went to a local burn by myself as a way to say goodbye to the East Coast. Because I had given up on love and was moving, I allowed myself to be open to casual encounters with other enthusiastic people. Anyways, on the morning of the last day that we would have to pack up our things and go to the default world, it was dawn and I was having fun. I have no idea what any of this means. This is from Reddit, you guys. If this doesn't make sense, that's fine. It doesn't make sense to me, but let's keep reading. I saw this man walk up on the hill towards me, his red long beard glowing in the morning sun. He's the one, I thought to myself. Now at the time I was actually thinking he's the one. Whoa, I'm not gonna read that part. I approached him with a few words. We enthusiastically sent our way to his tent after we had celebrated our last morning of the burn together. I grabbed my things and went back to my tent. I packed up and went home with zero intent to ever see him again. I didn't even have his real name. Then I realized I left a hand-crocheted hood that I loved deeply, and it cost a few pennies in his tent. I knew it was a long but short. It was a long shot, but I went to the Facebook page camp. As the fates would have it, my now fiance's best friend was on the page that day and tagged him. I reached out to him, we met up, and it's been straight magic ever since. We're getting married next fall. Okay, I am married to literally the only woman on the face of this planet that I would consider having kids with and spending the rest of my life with. To put this in perspective, 10 years ago, I was a boat sport skydiver and a dang good one that competed on the national level, taking 2 to 3 vacations a year and living the bachelor's dream. Great paying job with no bills. Today my wife and I make a good living, but we're having to pay some really big bills due to the kids' learning disability. I have a mother-in-law who, I'm not gonna read that part, but I wake up every morning and look at her and it's all worth it. There is no one else I would go through this with at all. If something happens to her, I will never get married again. My husband is my super best friend love machine perfect match. 10 years ago when I was 19 years old, I met this guy and we hit it off. The first night we met, we had an instant connection. Turns out I got pregnant that night. I was so devastated and terrified, but he took it like a champ and asked me to move in with him. nicest meals I've ever had, holding his hand and just looking out the window and smiling. It was the most romantic thing and nicest thing anyone's ever really done for me the whole time I was with him there. It was essentially the best time I've ever had. I've never had someone who appreciates me so much, cares so much, and loves so much. Glad his last relationship ended badly. It sounds horrible, but it means I got him. I wouldn't change a thing except where I live. I can't wait to be with him again. Next story. Second to last story. I could tell you about how he proposed to me, candles, wine, and Frank Sinatra, or about how he liked me since we were 4. The best way to make you jealous would be the little things he does. We had just gotten back from a terrible trip with awful travel, and all I wanted was a shower. The house was cold, and when I got out of the shower, he had carefully tipped our space heater to warm up my pajamas. One time my stomach was upset, and he got dressed to go get me a ginger ale and turns. I didn't even ask. And Tums, I'm sorry, I get right, Tums. He didn't even tell me where he was going. I thought he left the room to go get a snack. He even came back later with supplies. He's just so sweet and does little things like that all the time. He gets up early, he makes coffee, writes little notes on the whiteboard. He'll clean the kitchen when he knows I don't feel well. He takes such good care of me, even though it can be easy. I love him so much. Remember, everybody has a different love language, so I'm guessing hers is like acts of service, but just Google it, and you'll see all the different love languages. Not everybody's the same, so learn to love your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife in the way that they like to receive, or, what their love language is. So just a little tip. The last love story. One night we went out to a fancy shindig our university put on. Tuxedos, ball gowns, important people giving speeches. The kind of thing, like, I should mention that she got super inebriated. She is of age, she says, and then goes on to say, I am fairly new to drinking. Later he told me he tried to get me to drink some water, and she refused. Anyway, as human biology would have it, I was very sick. A friend of mine offered to give us a lift home because she was already on her way out. He gladly accepted and led me to the car, carrying my high heels in one hand. We were about 10 minutes away from his house when I threw up on his lap. He cupped the vomit in his hand and tried his best to reassure me that everything was going to be okay. 5 minutes away, I threw up. He sat firm, partially digested chunks of chicken, something running between his fingers, as I cried and apologized. And he told me it was going to be okay. We finally got to his house, and we got out of his car. He threw up too, holding someone else's puke in your bare hands. For 10 minutes straight, we'll do that for you. He left a bucket by the bed, intermittently changing it during the night as I heaved. He held me and stroked my hair until the next morning as he made high keening noise in so much